Today in our Book Lovers Corner, we highlight two books based in Connecticut written by a local author. Joining us today is Matt Micros. Matt is the author of The Knights of Redemption and The Chameleon. Now, you can see the books right there on your screen. Newly out, at least The Chameleon, right, Matt?
Yes.
So before we talk about the books, you kind of had an interesting life. Why don't you give us a little bit of the background?
It's very different than what I do currently. I coach soccer right now. I founded CFC with 4 of my friends, which is a premier youth soccer club. And then I coach at Post University in Waterbury. And when the books were released, most of my friends were floored because they didn't see it coming.
They were shocked. They're like, wait, you wrote books?
That was exactly their response. And I have to say that most soccer coaches are not known for being voracious readers, other than if it's about the EPL or something to do with sports. So they were absolutely floored. But my background actually was I was an English and communications major at Notre Dame, and then I went to Syracuse for television, radio, and film. So from there, I lived in Los Angeles for about 8 years and used to work at Nickelodeon on a kids game show called Wild and Crazy Kids.
I've heard of that.
It was
pretty cool.
I did a little bit of everything there. Would be putting the referee shirt on and setting up the games, and then eventually I landed at Creative Artists Agency, which is a talent agency, and I never really intended to sell other people's work, but there's no better way to learn the business than to work at a talent agency, because you get to see how deals are made and made a lot of contacts, and it was a great experience. But then I ended up coming to Connecticut because my parents, as they were getting older, I decided that I wanted to be a little closer to them, and they lived in Rochester, New York until they passed a few years ago, and my sister and brother-in-law were in DC, so Connecticut was kind of the landing
Neutral
place.
ground, right?
Right in the middle of the two of them, and that's how I ended up here. So.
Great. And you started Micropolis Press. Talk about that.
Sure.
Kind of with your mother in mind, right?
Exactly. So when I came back east and my mother had passed away, she had always been my biggest supporter on writing. And I had done some screenwriting and things that had bounced around out at a couple of the studios out there. But she had been my editor and really encouraged me to pursue it. Before she passed, she wrote a children's book called Chase, the Well-Mannered Rabbit.
Which we have right here on the table.
Yes.
You brought it with you.
Yeah, and so when she passed, my sister and I had talked about getting that published, because we thought that she would just sort of to honor her. So my sister got the illustrations made for the book, and that was the first one that came through, and we did that. And then I thought, well, there's no better time than trying to pursue mine, and my mother would have wanted that. And
you did.
And I did. So that's how it all started.
And here we are. All right, so let's talk about The Knights of Redemption, published back in January. And somehow 5 men with really different backgrounds all end up in jail in New Haven.
Yes. So
not based on your friends.
Not my friends, as far as they know. The idea, the premise kind of came from a movie that I used to love, which was The Breakfast Club.
Okay,
and I wanted to create something that was like an adult version of that. So the story is about 5 men that are arrested the same night, like you said, for unrelated crimes and thrown together in a New Haven, Connecticut jail. And at first glance, they don't really have anything in common. You've got the president of a university, assistant manager at a car wash, you've got a television star, a pro athlete, and a failed small town politician. But when you look a little closer, their lives actually have crossed paths, and they don't quite realize it. And they've been brought together for a reason, and each one of them has the ability to help one of the others.
Got it.
So
okay.
that's kind of the premise behind it, without giving away too much of the plot. But there's a reason they were all brought together.
Sure. And is it something you want readers to take away from it?
The idea is really, I mean, just like in the title, it's about redemption. It's about everyone maybe has things that they wish they could do over, and it's a little bit about you have one life to live, as my wife describes the book, so live it well, because you don't always get a second chance.
All right, very good. And The Chameleon has been out for about a month now. Starts off in Salisbury, Connecticut, a little small town, right?
Yes, the Chameleon was based on a character who had always been successful in life, and he went to Yale. He was Yale educated. He was an All-American football player. But he sort of settled into a life of relative obscurity. He lived out in California as a beach bartender, and he watches his old high school rival get elected governor of Connecticut. And his friends spur him into a bet that sees him inhabit 5 high-profile jobs, and he has 6 months to succeed at each. Wow. And it kind of examines whether it's the connections you have, or hard work, or a combination of the two. It takes him to Connecticut, takes him back to Connecticut, which is where he originally grew up, and then ends up going to Dallas, Cleveland, Las Vegas, Los Angeles. So it's what I would describe as kind of a fun romp.
Sure.
A middle-aged coming-of-age story.
I like it. Based on the based kind of on the Well, the first one was based on the Breakfast Breakfast Club,
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
Pretty funny. Where can we find your books?
They're currently on Amazon. I'm exclusive with Amazon. I've actually been talking to Barnes & Noble. Right now I'm exclusively on Amazon, both in paperback form and Kindle form, or if you have an iPad, the Kindle app for iPad works for them as well.
Great ideas. Are any of the characters based on people you know, or are you kind of just out of your imagination?
You know, it's funny. I tend to create the characters first, and then I think, who of my friends remind me most of these
Sure,
people,
sure.
and I drop them in that situation and think, what would my friends say in this response?
Pretty good. Well, the books are right up on the screen. You can find them on Amazon. Matt, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, stay with us. More Connecticut Style after the break. We'll be right back.